we are the Good Doctors of Abbey Research. As ever, Dr. Erin.
Dr. Kristen.
And it is Monday, June 8th. We're here with our Good Doctors Diagnose. And, unless you're living under a rock, we're having a lot of conversations in the country right now around racism. And particularly, we wanted to talk today about racism in the workplace and how companies should be dealing with their employees of color and other diversities. And we have an example from my beloved hometown of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Some of you may have seen in the news that the Pittsburgh Post Gazette, which is one of our main newspapers, has gotten in a lot of hot water in the last week for removing 2 journalists of color off of covering the Black Lives Matter protests in Pittsburgh. The first one, Alexis Johnson, was on the basis of a tweet she put on her personal Twitter, referencing the destruction to property and a mess made by the Kenny Chesney concert goers that happens every June, except this June, down at Heinz Field on our beloved North Shore. And she was removed from covering the protests, according to the Post Gazette, because she violated their social media policy. I saw an interview with her this weekend where she said she was never told they had a social media policy, and she does not believe that the company has one. So it created a conversation real quickly in the city of Pittsburgh, and as soon as it caught wind in the rest of the country, around the rest of the country, about how people of color, in this instance journalists of color, do and do not feel safe or protected or listened to in their work environments. So we wanted to have a quick little chat about that today.
I also saw a tweet this weekend that said, oh God, I'm paraphrasing, but can you imagine what if all these Black people went to their employers and said how they felt? And I retweeted it and said, hi, as an employer, I'd really appreciate that. Just because I hope they do, not only my employees, which we try to keep really open lines of communication, but obviously we can always be doing better. Mm-hmm. But that's my attitude. We can always be doing better. So we recognize that there is a lot of workplaces in which any number of intersections are not comfortable going to their supervisors and addressing these conversations. We've heard this from women. We've heard this from neurodivergent people. We've heard this from differently abled folks, and we've definitely heard it from people of color. Mm-hmm. So we recognize that there is a level of which, if you are not safe to speak, speaking is potentially, the ramifications of speaking are potentially not worth the risk. We recognize that. But we want to speak to employers right now. Yeah. And we would like to say that being as calm about this as we can be, if you are the problem, if you are why your people are not comfortable talking to you about these issues, you have some work to do. If you don't know if you are the reason your people are not comfortable talking to you, you have some work to do. And figuring out ways to hold hard conversations without them being punitive, without anyone getting shamed, because shame is never, in our academic perspective, ever productive to growth.
No.
That is difficult and tricky. Good news for you, what we do for a living, so give us a call. But also, really quick, our number one basic tip is that it starts with you. Mm-hmm. So if you are somebody who employs humans and you have been watching all of this happening and thinking people are blowing it out of proportion, we would like to gently tell you that they are not. And there is lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of data that explains to you why they're not. This is a difficult and hard, overdue and nuanced conversation. All of those things are true. But if you think, like the Post Gazette seems to, that people only bring parts of themselves to work, you are sorely mistaken.
Yeah, and I think we spend a lot of time talking about how you build cultures, right, in your workplace. And what we have learned in this specific instance about the culture at the Pittsburgh Post Gazette is that while, they have not built a culture on inclusivity. They may have some diversity in their newsroom, although statistics show they are not equally represented in terms of the demographics of Pittsburgh. in terms of their newsrooms. Most newsrooms aren't. But we talk a lot about diversity and inclusion. A lot of companies out there and leaders out there might have had bias training or diversity and inclusion workshops come to their office. But if you don't follow up those ideas with action and changing your culture, then there's no point in having the trainings in the first place. If you don't use it to make structural change to your culture, and as Dr. Kristen said, if you don't know if you're the problem, then you've still got more work to do.
There's a lot of people offering help with this work. There are definitely diversity and inclusion workshops out there for sure. Clearly we offer them and a lot of other people do too. There's a lot of places to start asking your questions. Our absolute number one tip for any leader right now is ask the questions.
Mm-hmm. And be willing to learn. Be open to learning something new about yourself. Be willing to be reflective and look at who you are and where your thoughts come from, and reconcile with that.
There's a tweet going around right now that says we need to normalize people changing their opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And we've, as a country, started to demonize people that do that. I think with the 2006, possibly.
Flip-flops, right?
Yeah, the flip-flops. I think it was the midterms in 2006. People got really hostile about flip-flops.
Yeah.
Guys, flip-flopping is not changing your opinion.
Right.
Those are not the same thing.
Those are not the same things.
We need to normalize growth and changing your opinion. We, two people that have been thinking about this for a decade, nigh on, have had to confront some of our own opinions in the last couple weeks and learn and grow and change and listen differently. And if we're doing that on the regular, we can only imagine for folks how often they've had to do it if this conversation is new for them.
Right.
So know that the journey's never over, but it starts with self-reflection, asking questions of yourself and others, and listening well.
That's right. And that is our Good Doctors Diagnose for this Monday. We hope wherever you are in the world, you are as safe and as healthy as possible. And we will see you guys on Wednesday. Take care.
Bye.